Your daughter's academic achievements are impressive, the headmistress's voice cut through the elegant assembly hall, dripping with practiced condescension. But excellence preparatory isn't just about grades. Her perfectly manicured fingers drummed against the mahogany podium as she stared down at the worn suit of the man before her. In the third row, someone whispered about the obvious discount store origin of his clothing. The father's calloused hands, marked by years of manual labor, gripped his daughter's straight-A report card like a shield. The annual Parents' Assembly had transformed into an impromptu tribunal. 300 pairs of eyes watched from imported leather seats, most belonging to CEOs, politicians, and old money families who treated the $50,000 annual tuition as pocket change. The afternoon sun filtered through stained glass windows, casting colored shadows across the scene. In the back row, a figure in a perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit shifted slightly, his designer sunglasses masking an increasingly intense gaze at the unfolding drama. The headmistress's next words would echo across social media within hours. We must maintain certain standards. Our reputation demands we consider not just academic excellence, but family background. She paused, a practiced smile spreading across her face. Perhaps a more suitable institution would better serve your situation. The word situation hung in the air like poison, and that's when Robert Downey Jr. removed his sunglasses, his expression carrying the weight of someone who knew exactly what transformative power truly meant. Sarah Chen's fingers trembled as she gripped her scholarship certificate, a document that had seemed like a golden ticket just 3 months ago. Her father's shoulders, usually proud and straight, despite years of delivering packages across the city, had begun to sink under the weight of the headmistress's words. The assembly hall's oppressive silence was broken only by the soft whispers of affluent parents, their muttered comments about maintaining standards and protecting the school's reputation, cutting deeper than any direct insult could. The reality of the situation was brutally clear. Her perfect GPA, her national science fair victories, and her early admission interest from MIT meant nothing against the simple fact that her father delivered their packages and her mother cleaned their homes. The headmistress, Dr. Victoria Sterling, adjusted her Cartier glasses with theatrical precision, her movements deliberately slow, savoring the power she wielded over a 15-year-old girl's future with the same satisfaction one might enjoy an expensive wine. Mr. Chen stepped forward, his voice steady despite his trembling hands. My daughter earned her place here. Every grade, every award, every recognition, she earned them all. The fluorescent lights caught the patches on his delivery uniform, the worn UPS logo, a stark contrast to the Gucci and Prada logos dotting the audience. We've never asked for special treatment, just fair treatment. Dr. Sterling's laugh was soft but cutting, a sound designed for country club dinner parties where people like the Chens serve the drinks. Fair treatment is precisely what we're offering, she replied, each word carefully chosen. Excellence Prep has a certain ecosystem. It's not just about academic achievement. Our students' families contribute to the school's culture, its networking opportunities, its social fabric. Her gaze swept across the assembly, drawing knowing nods from parents who understood exactly what she meant, that Sarah's presence was a tear in their carefully woven social tapestry that needed to be removed. Sarah's voice broke through the tension, surprising even herself. I've maintained a 4.0 GPA. I tutor other students. I won the state science championship. Her words echoed in the hall, strong at first but wavering as Dr. Sterling's practiced smile grew colder. A woman in the second row, whose daughter Sarah had helped achieve her first A in chemistry, suddenly became very interested in her Hermes handbag. My dear, Dr. Sterling's voice dripped artificial sympathy, those achievements are commendable. But Excellence Prep is more than just a school. It's a gateway to certain social circles. Your presence here—" She paused, selecting her words with surgical precision. "Makes some of our other parents uncomfortable. They worry about the dilution of our community's particular character." In the back row, Robert Downey Jr.'s jaw tightened. His fingers drummed against the armrest, a rhythm familiar to anyone who knew his story, the same restless energy that had once fueled his own transformation from society's outcast to one of its most respected members. His eyes, dark with recognition, fixed on Dr. Sterling's self-satisfied smile. The assembly hall's atmosphere shifted as several phones emerged from designer purses and tailored pockets, their owners eager to document what they assumed would be another routine submission to authority. Dr. Sterling had performed this dance before, the gentle but firm removal of elements that didn't quite fit the excellence prep image. The silent recording devices merely added to her satisfaction, providing an audience beyond these wood-paneled walls. "Furthermore," she continued, her voice carrying the weight of institutional authority, "we must consider the message we send. Excellence Prep's reputation was built over generations of distinguished families." Her eyes flickered meaningfully toward the children of 3 state senators and a tech billionaire seated in the front row. "Our alumni network opens doors that mere academic achievement cannot." Sarah's father stepped forward again, dignity evident in every move despite his weathered uniform. "My daughter opens her own doors, through hard work, through merit." But Dr. Sterling's raised hand cut through his words like a blade through silk. "Merit?" Her laugh was precise, practiced, purposeful. "Let's be realistic. Your daughter's presence here was an experiment in diversity. A noble one, perhaps, but ultimately unsustainable. The annual fundraiser alone cost more than your yearly salary. The class trips to Europe, the networking events in the Hamptons. How could she possibly participate? We're protecting her from feeling out of place." In the back row, Robert Downey Jr. uncrossed his legs slowly, his expression darkening with each word. The movement caught Dr. Sterling's eye, but she merely registered another wealthy parent preparing to voice support for her position. "I actually have a question about merit," Robert Downey Jr. S. voice cut through the tension, carrying the same magnetic quality that had commanded screens for decades. The assembly hall fell silent as he rose, designer sunglasses now tucked into his suit pocket. A wave of whispers rippled through the crowd. Parents who had been documenting Sarah's humiliation suddenly found themselves filming an unexpected celebrity intervention. "Tell me, Dr. Sterling," he continued, stepping into the central aisle, "how many of your students have published research papers at 15? His footsteps echoed against the hardwood floors as he approached the podium. "Because I took the liberty of looking up Ms. Chen's work on quantum computing. Fascinating read. MIT's quantum lab certainly thought so." Dr. Sterling's practiced smile flickered for the first time. "Mr. Downey, while we appreciate your interest, this is an internal matter." "Internal?" His laugh carried the weight of personal experience. "Like how addiction and failure were once my internal matters, until someone decided merit and transformation deserved a chance?" He pulled out his phone, displaying a web page. "I'm looking at Excellence Prep's mission statement right now. Nurturing exceptional talent and leadership for tomorrow's world. Interesting. Does tomorrow's world only accept leaders with trust funds?" The atmosphere in the hall shifted palpably. Parents who had been nodding along with Dr. Sterling moments ago now sat straighter, suddenly aware they were no longer witnessing the routine removal of an inconvenient student, but rather a moment that could define their school's reputation for years to come. Dr. Sterling's composure cracked further as smartphones throughout the hall shifted from recording Sarah's humiliation to capturing Robert Downey Jr.'s intervention. She gripped the podium tighter, her Cartier bracelet catching the light. While your accomplishments in entertainment are admirable, Mr. Downey, you may not fully grasp the complexities of educational institution management. Complexities? He was closer now, his voice carrying years of Hollywood-trained projection. Let's talk complexities. Did you know Sarah's quantum computing paper was cited by CERN researchers? That she volunteers teaching coding to underprivileged kids? That she turned down a full scholarship to Brighton Prep because she believed in excellence's stated mission of merit-based opportunity? A murmur rippled through the crowd as parents quickly Googled Sarah's achievements. The father of a legacy student, whose son Sarah had tutored, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Dr. Sterling's eyes darted across the room, watching her carefully cultivated consensus crumble. "My past taught me something valuable," Downey continued, now standing beside the Chens. "True excellence isn't inherited. It isn't bought. It's built through struggle, through transformation, through proving everyone wrong." He turned to address the assembled parents directly. "Your children share classes with a potential Nobel Prize winner, and you're worried about whether her father's uniform matches your country club dress code?" The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Sterling's carefully constructed facade of institutional authority began to crack under the weight of hundreds of recording phones and the implied threat of imminent viral exposure. Robert Downey Jr. removed his Tom Ford jacket, deliberately draping it over a nearby chair. The simple action carried the weight of a gauntlet being thrown. "Let me tell you about excellence, Doctor." Sterling. Real excellence. His voice filled the hall with the same intensity that had once delivered Tony Stark's most powerful moments. "When I was at my lowest, society's outcasts saw more potential in me than the elite ever did." He gestured toward Sarah, whose straight spine and lifted chin showed a dignity far beyond her 15 years. "Your institution claims to prepare leaders for tomorrow's world. But tomorrow's world isn't being built in country clubs. It's being built by people who understand struggle, who've faced rejection, who've had to prove their worth every single day of their lives." Several phones lowered as their owners became too engrossed to keep recording. A tech billionaire in the front row closed his eyes, remembering his own humble beginnings in a garage. Dr. Sterling's knuckles whitened against the podium as Downey continued. "You know what I see when I look at Sarah Chen? I see a girl who could revolutionize quantum computing while your legacy students are still posting yacht photos on Instagram. I see someone who tutors others despite knowing they look down on her father's uniform. I see pure, undiluted excellence, the kind money can't buy and privilege can't fake." The assembly hall crackled with an energy that felt like history in the making. Even the most privileged parents began to shift uncomfortably, suddenly aware they were on the wrong side of a moment that would be remembered. Robert Downey Jr. removed his Tom Ford jacket, deliberately draping it over a nearby chair. The simple action carried the weight of a gauntlet being thrown. "Let me tell you about excellence, Dr. Sterling. Real excellence." His voice filled the hall with the same intensity that had once delivered Tony Stark's most powerful moments. "When I was at my lowest, society's outcasts saw more potential in me than the elite ever did." He gestured toward Sarah, whose straight spine and lifted chin showed a dignity far beyond her 15 years. "Your institution claims to prepare leaders for tomorrow's world. But tomorrow's world isn't being built in country clubs. It's being built by people who understand struggle, who've faced rejection, who've had to prove their worth every single day of their lives." Several phones lowered as their owners became too engrossed to keep recording. A tech billionaire in the front row closed his eyes, remembering his own humble beginnings in a garage. Dr. Sterling's knuckles whitened against the podium as Downey continued. "You know what I see when I look at Sarah Chen? I see a girl who could revolutionize quantum computing while your legacy students are still posting yacht photos on Instagram. I see someone who tutors others despite knowing they looked down on her father's uniform. "I see pure, undiluted excellence, the kind money can't buy and privilege can't fake." The assembly hall crackled with an energy that felt like history in the making. Even the most privileged parents began to shift uncomfortably, suddenly aware they were on the wrong side of a moment that would be remembered. Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "I never wanted special treatment. I just wanted a chance to prove myself based on my work, my dedication, my dreams." The assembly hall hung on her every word as she continued. "Every morning, I watch my father leave at 4 a.m. to deliver packages to many of your homes. He taught me that excellence isn't about what you own, it's about what you contribute." Robert Downey Jr. placed a supportive hand on her shoulder, but remained silent, recognizing that this moment belonged to her. The tech billionaire in the front row had pulled out his phone, not to record, but to type furiously. His teenage son, whom Sarah had tutored in advanced physics, whispered something in his ear. Dr. Sterling's final attempt at control shattered as a board member stood up. "I move to immediately review our admission and retention policies," his voice rang out. "My company's quantum computing division would be honored to have Ms. Chen as an intern. That is, if she's willing to consider staying at an institution that nearly failed to recognize her worth." The room erupted in supportive applause, led by the very parents who had been nodding along with Dr. Sterling minutes earlier. Phones captured the moment from every angle as the #, Chen Excellence overtook #, Excellence for All. The headmistress's carefully maintained facade crumbled completely as she watched 15 years of institutional elitism dissolve in less than 15 minutes. The following hour transformed Excellence Prep's assembly hall into something unprecedented, a place where merit truly outweighed privilege. Parents who had never spoken to Mr. Chen now surrounded him, some apologizing, others offering their business cards. The tech billionaire's quantum computing division wasn't the only opportunity being presented. 3 venture capital firms expressed interest in Sarah's quantum computing research. Dr. Sterling had retreated to her office, her resignation letter already being drafted, as the board members convened an emergency session via text. But the real transformation was happening among the students present. Legacy children who had previously ignored Sarah now approached her with a new understanding, seeing for the first time how their own privileges had blinded them to true excellence. Robert Downey Jr. stood back, watching the scene unfold with quiet satisfaction. He caught Mr. Chen's eye and nodded, a silent understanding passing between 2 men who knew the true value of second chances and transformation. By evening, the video had gone viral. Chen Excellence and RDJ Wisdom trended nationwide, spawning conversations about merit, privilege, and transformation across social media platforms. News outlets began reaching out for interviews, but Sarah and her father had already left campus. They had packages to deliver together, a routine they'd maintained since her first day at Excellence Prep. The story resonated far beyond education circles. Tech companies began announcing scholarship programs for underprivileged students. Other elite schools scrambled to review their admission policies. Robert Downey Jr.'s impromptu speech was being transcribed and shared across LinkedIn, sparking discussions about privilege and opportunity in corporate America. But perhaps the most profound change happened within Excellence Prep itself. Students organized a petition to rename the scholarship program to the Chen Excellence Initiative, focusing on identifying and supporting extraordinary talent regardless of background. The same parents who had once whispered about discount store clothing now spoke passionately about the importance of diversity in their children's education. 1 month later, Sarah stood at the same podium where Dr. Sterling had tried to end her academic journey. Now, as the face of Excellence Prep's transformed mission, she addressed a new incoming class, the first selected under the school's revised merit-based admission policy. Robert Downey Jr., having accepted a position on the school's advisory board, sat proudly in the audience. "Excellence isn't about where you come from," she told the diverse group of new students, some in designer clothes, others in carefully pressed hand-me-downs. "It's about where you're going, and more importantly, what you're willing to give back." Her father, still in his UPS uniform after his morning route, beamed from the front row. The video of that first confrontation had become a symbol of transformation in education. But the real victory wasn't in the viral moments or trending hashtags. It was in the quiet revolution happening in schools across the country, where true excellence was finally being recognized in all its forms, proving that sometimes the most powerful changes start with a single moment of courage.